Good morning. Is everybody feeling fresh? Had their coffee? Yes. Okay, welcome. My name is Mbali Sikakana, and I am a publisher at NB Publishers here in Cape Town. And next to me are these creative women. We've got Pumla, Dineo, Gqola, Gothataone, Moeng, and Barbara Boswell. I could go on quite a bit about their accolades and titles, but I've decided that we are going to have them tell us what the best feedback they've ever received about their work is.
I'll go first. Hello. Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to the first session of the day. The best feedback I've received was my novel, Grace, my first novel. And this was a paper at the AFEMS conference that a master's student did about healing and how the novel enabled her to reflect upon processes of healing in her own life and in her family. And she wrote a really beautiful paper which was very poetic. It wasn't a really academic-y paper, but about her own healing and her own some traumatic event which she had experienced, which the novel allowed her to think about differently, and how she used affirmations, which I also use, as part of her healing.
Oh, wow.
The best feedback. Okay, so recently I was living in Madison, Wisconsin. I was at a book festival there one time. The person that I had gone to see was the writer Sigrid Nunez, who I really love. I love her work. I really admire her. And I had bought her book to get her to sign it. And, they gave us little post-it notes so we could write our names so that she didn't have to ask us. And so when I gave her my post-it note, she was like, "Oh, you're a writer?" And I was like, "Yes." She was like, "Yeah, call and response, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Yeah, I've been reading your book."
Wow.
And that was really a shock to me, because I just didn't know how she could have had access to my work. But that was the best feedback for me.
This is a hard question. So I think I'm trying to choose between two. I think the best feedback to my work was when I was at, Gabrielle Goliath's exhibition at the National Arts Festival a few years ago. This Song is For was first exhibited. And I was very affected. I mean, I'm a huge Goliath fan, but I was really, and when you're a fan of someone's work and you've seen it and you feel like you know it, you walk in and you're like, it's gonna be wonderful, but you don't, and then something else happens that you didn't account for. So I'm just really affected by it. I'm a little dazed because of, I'm having a visceral response to it as well. And then someone comes up to me very sweetly, I don't know her, she comes up to me and she starts saying these things. And I'm looking at her, and I'm so confused. I'm looking at her, and what she's saying sort of I understand what she's saying, but I don't know why she's telling me these things. So she's saying this thing to me. It's like she's, and then she says, "So thank you," and then she goes off, and then I realize she just recited 2 paragraphs from a renegade called Simpiwe, which is a very strange, because when you write mostly nonfiction,
Yeah.
people, if you're a poet, sure, poets are very lucky because people memorize their things, or playwrights, so you're used to, but it was, and I just thought, first of all, she had no way of knowing. I was on holiday with my son, so I hadn't announced it on social media. When I do things with my sons, I don't announce them in advance.
She did this impromptu.
So she just it was impromptu. She didn't know I was there. We're in the middle of this thing, and she says these things. I'm saying, look, who also, so yeah. It was just very, I'll never forget it. I've had wonderful feedback, but that I'm just like, okay, this person, I don't know who she is. She never talked to me again. But I'm still amazed.
Well, if you've ever come across any of their work, people do say amazing things about it. About Female Fear Factory, it is an insightful and sobering account of global patriarchal violence, but also offers a hopeful vision through the eyes of an unapologetic feminist. And that's actually a review from here at the Book Lounge. About Call and Response, a joy. Call and Response teams with life's twists and surprises and shocks. And that was Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi, who was at this panel last year. How cool. And then about Barbara Boswell's The Comrade's Wife, tender, delightful, frightening, a testimony to Boswell's inexhaustible vision. And guess who said that? Pumla.
That's true.
So I like to find all these little connections between the work and all the people that even come onto the stage and the Book Lounge and Open Book. Now I want us to actually experience some creativity. This is about creative practice. So I'm going to ask you guys to give me a word, and they will come up with a premise for a story. So
They will
quickly,
what?
a word.
They will do what?
You will come up with a premise for a story immediately.
Oh, okay.
On demand. Any word. I'm going to come up with a word if you don't.
Wow.
Clown. And I'm going to start with Barbara.
Yet again, I found myself being made a clown.
Wait, the word is clown? Oh my God. Clown. A mother has to contend with her daughter's fear of clowns, but she really has to throw like the best birthday party for her daughter so she can get in with the other mothers at the school.
And
That's
so
the
she's
story.
facing a fear. Nice,
Yes.
nice.
We are all so disappointed that with your genius, you not only aspire to be a gangster, as some people argue, but actually a political clown.
If you know who that's about, yeah. Okay, now we're really awake. Okay. I wanted to go into this.
I'm glad it's only one word. Jeez, I was like,
Yeah, we're going
Do you
to
want to
keep
do
this
another one?
contest.
I could keep going. I've got a few words in my mind. About creative practice and feminist imaginings. The first thing that came to my mind was something like the Combahee River Collective, which is obviously a political formation, but from the 70s, if you want to look that up. But it was also a creative space. It gave us terms like identity politics that we use today. Those women formulated and created things together. Are there women's spaces that you draw from in your personal and professional lives that help you to get into creativity?
okay, I'll go first for a change to give Barbara a bit of a
Give her a break.
break. Yes, absolutely, all the time. I draw inspiration from historic women's groups and some contemporary ones. So the ones that accompany me the most are kind of some of the surviving material from FEDSAW, which is the Federation of South African Women from in the 50s. They wrote just the most incredible intersectional, the policies and constitutions and those kinds of things, but I'm constantly amazed by how 2024 they seem, right? Just in terms of the articulation of what would later be called intersectionality. And also just joy, right? We all think feminist joy is like, oh, we've just come up with it in the last whatever, this kind of insistence of feminist, so things like that. So historically, that's that's some of the people. I think that, and then also historically, the people who formed Kitchen Table Press and brought out this bridge called My Bag, very important for me in my early writing life. And then in the contemporary, the 1 in 9 campaign, which was like a lifelong love, and I'm a member of the 1 in 9 campaign. I will always be a member of the 1 in 9 campaign, but they no feminist collective challenges and affirms and complicates my life more.
In my personal life, I would say, I just moved back home to Saroe. So I'm spending a lot of time with my mother, who is in her late 70s, with my aunties, who are also in their 80s.
Sure.
And so, I'm spending a lot of time with them, talking to them, hearing their stories, and just like really admiring the audacity now, like the kind of stories that they tell, all of the gossip from like the 80s, all of the gossip about all the people that, happened like 20, 30 years ago. So I'm drawing a lot of creative inspiration from that. I'm drawing, I'm just like really interested in their stories and their lives, how their lives have changed. And so that's been really creatively inspiring. I also have like a writers group that I keep in touch with, my writer friends that I keep in touch with over WhatsApp, and we just talk about writing our work all the time and like give each other feedback and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, those are so, excuse me, essential to me. Some of the spaces are, again, my mother is a very important, that's a space that we create to talk and to think through things. And I'm currently working with my late grandmother's journals. I'm writing something, I don't know what, don't ask me what it is yet. But there's a lot of things that I found in her journals that's just so rich about life, instructions for life, how to do life well. And then my friendships, I have very deep and meaningful friendships with feminists, and I also am part of creating feminist writing circles. So that's very intentional, and I have some of I see Sadia's here, she's part of my feminist circle, and there's Sarita, hello. I can't see everybody so well, but the people also that I swim with, and that's been really wonderful, like Atambile and Marion, and I know she's here, I'm not sure if she's in the room, but we do the swimming together, and then sometimes that we flow into writing after swimming, or we flow into cake. But there's always a lot of, they're all feminists, and we're all doing important to us and to each other feminist work. And we sustain each other in that way through this love.
Awesome. I just love these answers. I want to talk about actual creative practice and how you get there, right? I love this quote by Toni Morrison where she says, I tell my students one of the most important things they need to know is when they are their best creatively. They need to ask themselves, what does the ideal room look like? Is there music? Is there silence? Is there chaos outside, or is there serenity outside? What do I need in order to release my imagination? So that's the question. What do you need in order to release your imagination?
I guess I just need quiet. I need to feel. I wake up really early, like at 4 a.m. to write.
Sure.
I go to sleep at 8 p.m. Do not have a social life.
Sure.
So I wake up early. So I need to feel like I'm alone. I need to feel like I'm alone in the world, kind of. Just like there's no possibility for interference or disturbance from anybody. I do live at home, so I live in a full household of people with a lot of guests who come over. So waking up at 4 a.m. is the best time for me. I also just need a desk, and I need some books that are sort of inspirational, like even if it's like a craft book, a book of poetry, or just like any novel, just like to get me in the flow of, I don't know, like literary language maybe.
Language.
Just like, if I am struggling with a chapter, if I just read a paragraph or like a chapter of another novel, then it'll get me in the flow of writing, my own work.
Should I go? Do you want to go? It depends what I'm writing. So I'm a night owl. So I write through the night. I write best through the night. And I need something comfortable to wear. So I'm usually in my pajamas or in workout clothes that I haven't taken off yet, since I'm not going to sleep. And I need coffee, I need sparkling water, I need some kind of nut. And I need, I need preferably a cashew nut, like a lot of cashew nuts, and I need two kinds of nuts. I need food is very important to this process. I need cashew nuts because I'm going to need savory for when I'm struggling in certain kinds of ways, and then I need chocolate coated peanuts for when it's a different kind of. And I need to have lipstick on.
Oh, wow.
So I put on lipstick. The first thing I do, I can't be bothered to get dressed up. But so I suppose putting lipstick on or something like that doesn't make sense, but kind of makes me feel like I'm dressed up for myself. And then these two, like a sweet and a savory, and those are my favorite sweet and savories, and a lot of coffee and a lot of sparkling water. And like, I'm the only person in the world as well. So I usually will write from like 11:30 maybe till that moment when the sky moves from like navy to light blue. Usually my brain goes, okay, it's daytime, we finished. So my best time, like if it's in the dark, everybody's sleeping, the world is quiet, I'm the only, like you, I'm the only person alive and awake. I mean, I know I'm not, but alive and awake in the world. Yeah.
That's very similar. I was so happy when my son moved out of my house because I have to be alone also. It's like finally here, and I love him so much. But, I get up at 4:30.
Sure, guys.
And I need coffee or tea. I'm not really fussy. I need a desk. I need a fountain pen with blue ink.
Okay.
And I need a laptop and a book, like those hardcover lined books that you get at Pick and Pay.
Sure.
Yes, that kind of book. And then said coffee or tea, doesn't really matter, maybe water sometimes. I can't look out of a window. I have to look at a wall. Otherwise, I'll spend the whole time looking out the window. And then I just start. The thing is, like, I usually light a candle, and then I say a prayer, and I start. And I start, like, quickly. Because if I don't start quickly, then I won't start at all. So that's, and every morning, it has to be the same sequence, and it has to be the same prayer. And I even have the prayer on a card that I read it out. Sure. And, it's very formulaic, and it's not about how do you feel, or if I feel good or happy or sad, it doesn't matter. It matters that I start at 5 a.m.
Wow. Sure. Okay. I think it's also good to think about creative practice in a more specific way. Like, you have created physical objects that we can read. If we look at your last books, let's talk about that first spark of intention. What was your intention with that project, and did it realize that intention in the end?
With the last what? With the last book?
The last book, yes. Let's talk about Female Fear Factory.
Oh, I don't know. What's the question?
What was your intention with it, and did it realize that intention in the end?
So I'm going to answer you now. But here's the thing. I'm so far away from I'm not far away from the book itself. It's very dear to me. But I'm so immersed in a totally different genre, different thing, so that I'm not avoiding. I'm just battling a little bit to recall.
And rather, let's talk about what you're doing now and what your intention is, and maybe you won't know how it's realized in the end.
Okay, so I've been doing this weird thing. I started out I was a grown person. I started out as someone who wrote short stories.
Wow.
And I published a few, and then I decided, because of someone that I'm not going to mention, that we all love, who's a fantastic feminist who lives in the Western Cape, because she complicated my life, and I was like, oh my God, I have to know how to write nonfiction in this fantastic way, like Desiree Lewis. And then I was like, I'm going to teach myself to be really kick-ass at nonfiction, but I'm going to take 5 years, because if I haven't figured it out in 5 years, then I'm going to come back and do what I'm meant to do and write lots of fiction and never a novel, because I'm just never going to have that level of commitment, but I'll write very complicated short stories. And then it took 18 years, and the 5 years took 18 years. So now in the last few years, and then when I turned 50, I said, okay, like, lady, you have more behind you than in front of you. Are you going to write more short stories, or are you going to never do it? So I've started writing short stories. I've returned to short stories, and it's the most joyful thing. I'd forgotten who I am. And initially, I thought I would just bring together the ones that I've published in literary journals and anthologies, like when I still did this thing. But then I actually realized that I have something else. And what is my intention? My intention is to explore whether this is really something that I can do well and consistently. My intention is also to see what kind, to enjoy it, right? And see if it brings the kinds of joy. And my intention is also, I mean, it's okay, it sounds so, but anyway, my intention is also to see my intention is to share the joy, right? Because it's not about happy people, but it's very messy. But I'm hoping that this kind of messy stuff that I'm writing and just having way too much fun writing is going to actually be fun for the reader too. But if it doesn't, my intention is just to free myself as a reader, as a writer. It's, I always say to my students and my friends sometimes, listen, every writer is entitled to at least 2 bad books. So it could be the bad book, it's fine, it'll still be free.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Well, I guess when as a child, I was a voracious reader. And I, as a very young child, I was reading a lot of Enid Blyton, Famous 5 books. And I guess, one of the virtues that we talk about when we talk about fiction is that it has this ability to transport you to, faraway places, even from your little corner of the world. And I think that's true. But I think for me, a greater pleasure and a greater validation that I get from fiction is when I recognize myself in fiction, whether it's, a character who is messy in ways that I am messy, or who's thinking things that I am thinking that I didn't think that people thought, or who's doing things that are inappropriate that I would also do. I'm oh, okay, I'm not the only person who does this terrible thing. But as a younger person who was reading, it was really difficult to recognize myself in fiction. Well, I shouldn't say that. I should say I didn't have a lot of access to books about Botswana specifically, and to books about Sorowe. Of course, there was Bessie Head, but I only encountered her when I was 16 years old. So before then, I was reading a lot of books from the UK, from the US, but never books about my home village and my country. So a big part of my impulse in writing was just I would like to recognize myself in fiction, and I would like to recognize places that I know, like my church. I don't go to church, actually. My grandmother's church, I should say. I don't know why I said my church. But, my grandmother's church, or the butchery that we used to get meat from. And so I think with this book of short stories, I wasn't setting out to write a book of short stories. I was just writing individual stories. But that was the initial interest, I think, was just I would like to sort of see characters walking the same streets that I walk, going into the same places that I go into, dealing with like the same sort of issues that I deal with in my real life, and did I meet that intention? I feel like maybe like 85%. I would give myself an 85%.
It's never 100%.
Which is good. Which is good.
It's good.
So sure, yeah, kind of. I met that intention.
You're very lucky.
Yeah, mine was, I wrote this book very quickly. And I had this moment before I started it where I have this wonderful person in my life, which every person should have, but she belongs to me, Malika Ndlovu. I mean, she's my friend, and she's a poet, and she's a very vast, creative person. And she also, I regard her as a mentor, and she's like such a guru with creative stuff. And I had this idea for this book. I wanted to write a short story collection. I have like 5 things actually that I wanted to do. And I still have 5 things. And so I said, so Malika came to my house and we had this whole kind of coaching session, which she was like, she was chanting and playing her tambourine and doing all sorts of things. And I was just laying on the floor and she was like wafting smoke all over me. Because I was like, Malika, I don't know what to start next. My brain is like, I want to do all of these things, and you are this amazing person who, she's kind of like a book doula, I call her. And I just said, I need to have time with you where we do this thing where you just help me to, what is my vision? Because I've got too much in my head and I can't decide. And we did this thing, and then we ate nice Indian food afterwards. There's always also food involved in this creative space because it's important. And nuts and cashew chocolates and stuff. And so, and after that, because I regard writing as spiritual, and I knew that I needed a spiritual process to help me, to guide me. And so that was how this book came about. She just said, and there wasn't like a decision, okay, now you're going to do number 1, 2, 3, 4. It was just, she said, look at the ocean, you're in love with the ocean, and now you're going to flow like the ocean. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get up at 4:30 and sit down, and then I'm going to flow like the ocean, whatever. And that is how I started. And like Pumla, I also write to please myself. First of all, I write what I want to read. I write what excites me. I write what brings me joy. So it's got to be exciting and lekker for me. I have to be like, oh, this is so lekker. What I just wrote. That is why I write.
I mean, on that
My
note,
intention.
right. On that note, I mean, it feels lekker. It's happening for you, and how do you know when it's good? That other people will also think it's good.
Can I answer may I? Yeah.
Yes,
So that first draft of writing, the first stage is where you just do whatever you want. And then there's also the craft. So if you're a serious writer, you are going to work on your craft, you're going to hone your craft, you're going to polish. And so that happens in the next round. So then you start editing. And when I think it's good enough, I have readers that I ask, will you read my book? Or will you read my draft? And I take their assessments very seriously. And these are people that I really trust, and they're part of my circle and part of my feminist circle. And they know what I want to do. They know what I want to achieve with the book usually. And they'll give me the feedback. They'll say, like Prig said to me, the first draft of this is like Mills and Boone. Are you sure? And so I was like, no, it's not like Mills and Boone. And
It's not anymore.
So that's how, you never know that it's good, actually. I don't think you ever know that it's good.
Do you ever know if it's good?
Well, I don't know if I know that it's good, but I think I know when I feel like I'm saying the thing that I want to be saying. I think that sometimes there is like even like a bodily sensation. You're like, okay, yes, like you have like a sensation in your body that's like that is the right thing that you're
Like,
supposed
this
to
is
be
true.
saying. And so like, yeah, like feeling a sense of reaching like a truth that you're sort of reaching for, and like getting to that point of truth. But I think when you're in that mode, in that state of flow, if that is what we're calling it, you know, like you do get that sensation, you do have that sense like, yes, that is the right thing that I'm supposed to be writing. But I think once you do sort of move out of that space, then, you know, like I start to have a lot of self-doubt about it. Like I start questioning myself, like, is this really good? Like this maybe is like a little too, I don't know, overwrought or something. And that is when, you know, like I also have my trusted readers, like my friends that I went to writing school with. And I have a very good friend who I trust like really implicitly, and I will ask him like, tell me the truth, like, is this stupid? And we like to, we call each other like coaches, like be my life coach. So if I'm having a moment of crisis with my writing, I'll be like, I need you to be my coach right now. Like, tell me if this is right or not. So yeah, like I think that sometimes when I'm writing, I do have a sense like it's going well. I also have a sense that it's not going well. But once I'm out of that state where I, you know, like my self-doubt comes in, then I give that to the assessment of other people. Yeah, and then just like hope that it worked, you know? Yeah.
So, like Barbara, I also think that writing is very spiritual. Don't know where that came from. So I think that, so for me, I know it's, and I care about what I'm trying to say, but it's, I need to be happy with how I've said it. I need to, the language, even if it's a difficult thing, like a painful, difficult thing that I'm writing or writing about, the language needs to start giving me pleasure. And I think like all of us, I over-edit and unedit and get cross with myself and walk away and da-da-da-da and just hate it and love it. But I know it's good when like Gothataone, I have a visceral, like something physically happen, like the pleasure is like, there's a moment where like you've messed around with it enough that like you read it and you're like, right? And sometimes you let it go and people read it and they go, it's a frog. And you're like, it's not a frog, it's a butterfly. How can you not see it's a butterfly? And it's, I don't know, I think, but for me, it's the difference between the writing that I've done, that I've released, and the difference, and the writing that I've done that is out in the world, right? So I don't, if I don't have that, until I get to that point where I'm like, I like the language, and I have that weird physical thing, it doesn't become public. It just becomes like one of the millions of words and hundreds of things that are in all my laptops and drives, and I don't know where some of it is, and it's in formats that can't even be read because the hardware no longer exists. So, I mean, I have things in stiffies and CDs, and I'm like, I don't even, and they label, so there's lots of stuff. Yeah, so that's how I know. And sometimes it lands and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes I go back to it, having loved it, and I go, wow, why did I write this like this? But it's fine.
Yeah. And sometimes the other people are also publishers, aren't they? The feedback people, the reviewers,
Yes.
the editors, all of that.
Absolutely.
Do you find that to be a creative process as well?
Like, do I find what to be a creative process?
To be in conversation
Or
with
with
a
editors,
publisher about, and an editor about your work, really, and work with an editor on your work.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think I like to kind of get to a complete draft by myself to kind of finish, whether it's a story. Right now I'm working on a novel, so I'm really trying to get to the end of it without the input of other people to make sure that it's exactly what I'm thinking, and it's like my vision without, maybe having been without like other people's input influencing me. But once I have finished that draft, then I really like to collaborate with it's a collaborative process with an editor. Like I do like to be edited. And I mean, it's just like an opportunity for somebody who hasn't lived with the work for as long as you have to sort of show you your little blind spots, like your places where you thought you were doing something great, but actually like, no, it wasn't that great, So I do find that to be like a really great creative process. And I've worked with a lot of really, because I had so many of my short stories also published in literary journals, I've had the opportunity to work with like a lot of really different and great editors. And it's interesting to see also that the processes, like how do they approach the story? How are they reading the story that you sent to them? Like when they first reach out to you, what are they saying about the story? Is it what you thought you were doing, or are they completely just, wandering in the wilderness from what you thought you were doing, So I really like working with editors, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had the fantastic good fortune to work with wonderful editors. I've never had a bad experience, which seems almost really
Very lucky.
Strange, because I've heard such horror stories. But I've worked with Helen Moffat, Linda Gilfillan, and Alison Lowry. And they were all just superb, and I love them all. And we ended up, I wouldn't say we're friends, but I just love them because they were so respectful. There was one editor I worked with, I forget her name, so that's probably telling of this story, but where I wrote about the Sharpeville massacre, and I said 69 people were murdered, and she changed it back, she changed it to they died. And I thought that was a very subtle but important point of being vigilant, where I said, no, they were murdered, and you're not going to change my words in this way. So, there's sometimes when I feel that kind of protective instinct, and it's very political. But then usually by the time it gets to editing, generally I've detached, I also have detachment rituals, which are very vast. When it's at an editor, I've detached from it sufficiently so that I don't feel hurt. I mean, if you're going to really do something egregiously cutting of my work, I'm going to fight you. But I'm not going to, I'm generally happy to accept guidance that retains the work's essence. And I don't actually feel that it's creative at that point. For me, it's now business. Yeah.
Nice. And it is business at that point.
So I have a mixed, I'm very ambivalent. I mean, I know that I need to be edited. And I take it very seriously, and I take what editors do very seriously, and I can see how when, with some editors, and I'll even say who, I've gotten my work back, and I've been annoyed because of the color and it's like I'm done now. Like, you want me to do more work? But I also, that's just being silly, right? It's like throwing your toys. In my heart of hearts, I've absolutely appreciated how much more successful my work has been after they've been through it. I've also had, and I've been lucky in the sense that, there's most of the editors There was a, when I wrote What is Slavery to Me, which was a very complicated process, I had, and this was my first book, I can't believe I've forgotten her name, because I've like spent forever looking for her, and I don't know, she stopped editing. Lee Smith, I think is her name.
Okay.
And I've never met her, but it was just the most incredible introduction to having a full manuscript edited.
Sure.
And whenever I try to work with an academic manuscript, I'm trying to get people to find this, but I don't know where she is. If any of you know where she is, like I've spent like 14 years looking for her. I have an academic manuscript. It would be like if she did it and not the people that they usually send. So yes, in that sense. I also have, I also have a favorite editor who isn't an editor, but I kind of bully her to Grace Musila.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Because she's, I love how she writes, I love her mind, and she's completely unafraid of me. So even, doesn't matter how finished the thing is, I can't play the games that I can sometimes play with other editors with her, because she sees right through me, and she's completely unconvinced. But she's very careful, and she just edits in this way that gives me way more work, but actually is so rewarding. So I fight with her all the time, but she's like in my mind while I'm doing this stuff. So yes, absolutely. And I've been very lucky in terms of literary, when I did publish short stories, I had one, so my fiction, I just only have kind of wonderful, except for one person who changed Babalaza to Babelas in one of my stories. And it was a long time ago, and I'm still annoyed because I didn't see that. Like, it wasn't in the edit that came to me, because there's no way I would have let it be changed to Babelas, because you can see, it's been forever. And I'm like, I wrote Babalas, I'm not insane. It's not Babalas. But anyway, so except for that, but that was the copy editor, not I don't know where, it snuck in at the last minute after I'd approved the thing. So that's the only, but in terms of, sorry, I'm taking too long. So my creative, I've been very lucky, and so maybe, yeah. But I've also had a horrendous experience with someone with an editor that I will not work with. Mm-hmm. I will not work with. If it's the difference between that particular person editing a manuscript or my book being published, it's fine. I will not. It's just the level of aggression and paternalism by this particular editor. Yeah. I will not work with her. And she works across the academic press landscape, and I won't. Mm-hmm. So that person is where I draw the line. And I won't name her, but I will not ever work with this person, ever, under any conditions.
I'm stealing all the good editor names, because that's just my job.
Oh, also I have to say, and also of course my fabulous publisher, Melinda Ferguson, is I love her, and she drives me crazy, and she also edits. She and Grace edit back and forth, and then I'm like, the two of them. But I love them, and I really
we all
appreciate
love Melinda. She's part of our stable. I think I'll open up to questions, if you guys are ready with a few. You needed another coffee this morning. Please, guys.
Yeah, that is too personal. Thanks.
There's someone at the back.
I can't see.
Hi. Thank you, ladies. It's been it's been so blissful sitting here listening to you talk about writing and everything. And I think my question is, and all of you have located your imaginary in what, it always starts inside. I must get rid of this but. And we also know that the world around us affects us. And sometimes affects maybe I must speak for myself. Sometimes affects my imagination, and maybe even puts a tad, bit of fear in me as I sit and I have to write. With the more, I feel like the more feminists imagine, the more there's a pushback, and the world is like, okay, maybe we need to re-look at this abortion thing. We're giving them too much freedom, these women. Calm them down a little bit. And then the more we go, yeah, but okay, so how about we do, and then all of a sudden, and it feels like we go 10 steps forward, 20 steps back, 5 steps forward, 15 back. Do you ever feel like the pushback to our imaginaries and the realization, where we get this, we write and we think about it. You were speaking about the River Collective, and that was an imaginary, that was imagination, and yet so political and affecting everyday lives. And we do that. This is what I think all of your work does. But is there that point where sometimes you feel like society, you look around and you go, oh gosh, but didn't we sort this out already? How are we back here again? And does it limit you? Is there that little thing in you that goes, ooh?
Thanks.
It's a really hard question to answer.
Are we taking more, or should I answer?
I think let's answer. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. That's a fantastic question. It's a big question. So I don't know if I'm going to do it justice. I feel like this is one of those questions. In fact, I'm having a physical thing. I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of those essays it's one of those questions that I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to feel like I answered it really badly, and then I'm going to go write something, and then it's going to, every now and again someone asks a question like that, and I try very hard to answer it, and then the question lodges itself in my brain, and it ends up being
A book.
like I have to answer it, and it becomes an essay or a book or a thing. I feel like you're just making trouble for me, but thank you. So I don't know. For me, it isn't so much that I feel like, yes, of course, the world interferes all the time. And this is why I have to write when I have to create the conditions to feel like I'm the only person in the world to actually put things on down. I don't think, and I'm constantly frustrated also by some things that I feel like we shouldn't still be here. But I also don't really think time works like that. So my sense of time is not that we progress. My sense of time is that it's like, so I'm not, like, yeah, it's boring to say the same thing over and over again, but if you think that that's how time works, then it kind of, I don't think we're in a loop, and I don't think if we know your past, then you don't know your history. I don't know that thing that we like to say, if you don't know your future, you don't know your past. I don't understand that thing, because time doesn't work. In my head, time doesn't work like that. So yes, there is the frustration, but I think that repetition, unfortunately, as frustrating it is an inevitable part of the human experience. I don't think we develop and progress, and it's chronological. I think that the pushback is part of the price you pay. It's the cost of choosing to be a writer who puts your work out into the world, for me. So I don't like it. I get hate mail. I'm always going to, I get hate mail. I get hate mail. So but it's just kind of, and sometimes it's interesting hate mail, and sometimes it's really bizarre hate mail, because you're like, that's what you care about. And sometimes it's mean, but for me, I just accept that it's, what am I going to do? I'm not going to stop being a writer.
Right.
That's one of the 3 things I came to this planet to do this time around. So it's horrible, but like, what are you going to do? Stop writing. That's not an option. So it's real, and it's there, but like, I don't know how not to write. And I don't want to know how not to write. So, and not, like, I just, like, everybody's going to like what you like, and some people think they're entitled to scream at you and send you horrible things, but like, then I put other things in my life to help me deal with it and still have a little bit of a sense of humor and a lot of madness.
It's such a vast and difficult question. I don't know how to answer it. I don't know the answer. I feel like we're in this moment watching a genocide and several genocides unfold in this post-World War II where we were supposedly never to see that happen again, right? And these are not the first ones after that moment, right? There are ongoing genocides. I think capitalism and racialized capitalism and settler colonialism are as pernicious as ever. And I think these forces are structuring our world, and I'm very aware of living in that world, and I'm aware of feeling often very hopeless in it. And, I think that is why community is important, and I don't feel like I'm in activist spaces at the moment. I've kind of just removed myself. I go in and out of them sometimes, but I have also, for me, it's been permission to actually just write, because like Pumla, I feel like that's what I've been put on earth to do. And yes, there are other interventions that I can make, and I know in my own mind, there's constantly this debate about, are you doing enough? And is writing enough? And on some level, deep within me, I know it's not enough, but yet I still have to do it. And then at other moments, I get pulled completely away from it, and I do other things that are more activist things. You're looking at me like that.
No, I'm loving what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you teach every day, so I don't know how you can feel like you don't do it, like you do so much that changes the world every day.
I feel like the world is there's so much that needs to be done that I'm not doing, and then I think you're also like one person, so yeah. That doesn't answer your question at all, but thank you for that question.
It
It
does.
It really does.
Do you have a thought?
I don't think I have anything to add. I was just happy to listen to these two talk about that.
But I also think, how successful would these systems be if they could just stop us from imagining? They could just get us to stop doing even that one thing that keeps us alive.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we know that you're feminists, right? Especially because, especially like with you, Barbara, and Pumla, like, it's even in your name, you're feminist rogue, right? But then, like, every time you speak or you're on social media or whatever, you always reiterate the fact that you are feminists. So what I want to know about your writing, when you start a writing project, like, do you make like a decision that this is going to be a feminist writing project, or does it just become a feminist writing project because it is a writing project by a feminist?
I mean, I don't want to be glib, but for me it's very straightforward. Like, everything. So you know that story that you're all bored of hearing, so I'm not going to tell it, I'm just going to tell it because I always mention it, of how I've been calling myself a feminist since I was 15, and it wasn't because I became a feminist at 15, because I found the word that described what I felt I'd always been. I was already for a long time. So I don't decide that what I'm writing is feminist. I just think that I am, because my brain works in this weird, particular feminist way, what comes out of it, with all the contradictions, comes out as like, it's made from my feminist blood and my feminist sweat and my feminist energy and my feminist flaws. So it doesn't get to a point where I'm like, and I ask myself things about, but I think I don't decide, okay, so I'm gonna write a feminist thing. I just assume that it is. And sometimes then I have to think about how to language it in particular. Like, if I look at it and I'm like, okay, maybe I haven't written this part well. But so for me, it's the craft that needs working at. But the feminism, I just always assume. Like, I assume that everything I do in a particular feminist way. So the way I road rage is like a particular feminist road raging. The way I, like behave in a woman's loo, like in a bathroom to the other people who are in the bathroom, the way I slip into a thing that says male because I really need to pee, and but like I just feel like the small things and the interesting thing and the big things and I don't ever not feel like it's like I don't know how to. I don't feel like I'm ever outside of it. So it's like, even when I'm doing something that I think is really weird, it's usually, and I'm fighting with myself, it's like, really? This is the contradiction? So there's no for me, I don't know.
There's always an awareness.
There's no outside of feminism. So even when I don't think about it all the time. I'm not walking around saying, I'm walking in a particularly feminist way. It's just, my spirit is, like, I'm just really difficult and weird. And fortunately, feminism is able to hold all the weirdnesses that are mine, right? So I don't feel like I have to work at it. And I hold myself accountable for certain things, and I mess up because I'm a human being. But so that's kind of how I think about my writing. Like, I don't make it feminist. It just comes out already, and then I can make a decision about whether it's doing
the feminist things you want.
This is such a terrible answer.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Barbara, you have to answer
No, I'm the same.
beautifully.
I have the exact same answer. Can't add anything more. Yeah. I don't know how to not feminist. Well, I do actually, but then it's always a disaster. So it's like, you knew you weren't supposed to do that thing because it's not a feminist thing. And look where it got you.
I think that's interesting to ask of fiction, actually, because am I setting out to write a feminist book? I didn't set out to write. I don't know if it's feminist. Is this a feminist book? I don't know. I guess I'm setting out to. I'm interested in women's lives, women's desires and goals and ambitions, and how they self-actualize, women's ways of being in the world. And so when I'm setting out to write a story, that's what I'm setting out to write the truth about women's lives. And I don't know if that then translates into like a feminist act or a feminist piece of art. But I didn't say, I'm going to write a feminist book, I'm just like, I'm interested in these women's lives, and I'm interested in writing about their lives and about their dreams and their desires. But I don't know if it is.
My bar is low. It's on the ground. If you're an honest woman writing, that's subversive, and that's feminist to me. We've got 2 minutes. Maybe.
Hi, Lenina.
My question is about creative practice, and I loved earlier when they asked a question about how do you know when it's good, and you spoke about it being a visceral feeling in the body, and liquor, and pleasure, and truth. I also want to know, how do you hold, a lot of the stuff that you write about is also really painful, and so how do you hold space for that? Because I know sometimes, and I haven't written books, but I can jump up from my chair and have to pace and not be able to engage. Like, do you ugly cry? Do you have to get up and wrap yourself in a duvet, or rage at the wall, or scream? Like, how do you hold space for those really, really difficult things, and the difficult things that happens to your characters? And I think even just when you write about how the world is structured and the female fear factor, you must get really upset, and I get really upset.
I love Lenina, by the way. Just saying, I'm like a super fan. Hi, Lenina. I mean, I write about, I don't know. I get asked this question a lot, and I don't know what the answer is. Because, I write about slavery and rape and violence, right? But I have a very joyful life. So I don't, does what I write about make me angry? Yes. But it's not the writing is the writing. Like, I feel the things but I have a wonderful, charmed life. I don't actually have a thing for dealing with I feel the things I feel, and sometimes I go a bit mad, but I have the great gift of a really, I'm very careful about, I have wonderful friends. Like my friends are literally, I'm not the best human beings on the planet. This is why I don't like making new friends, because I'm like, I'm not ruining a perfect thing. Like the best people in the world, the craziest, most generous, so I have a really wonderful life. And so I think that that's what contains it. And I'm silly and giddy, and I have room to be all of those things. And a lot of people in my, they know we're all the better, like they've seen me at my shittiest. So they're really, really generous. And so I feel like my life, the magical thing that is my like just beautiful life, which is not perfect, right? Because I'm human and I mess up. Is how I'm able to do what I don't know how I would do it if I had a difficult, if my life, if I just wasn't, and it's not all my doing, it's just the great gift of the goddesses really smiled upon me and they said, she's going to write about slavery and rape over and over again, and
let's give her a good life
things.
while
Let's
we're
give
at
her
it.
fantastic people to just...
To contain the darkness, yeah. Okay.
Barbara is one of those people.
One of the people. Okay, well, thank you guys. What a wonderful discussion. I've really enjoyed this, genuinely. So I hope you feel the same. We're at 11. Thanks for being such a great audience.